It's the late 1910s, and the conflict known as the Great War is coming to an end. For supplying troops and nurses to the Western Front and fighting the German colonial empire in the Pacific, Japan has gained the Northern Mariana Islands. The island of Saipan has been turned into a sugarcane factory. No one knew that this island would be home to one of the biggest battles of the Pacific. While Hitler expanded across Europe, Japan began aggression against China. Though Japan was a nation with limited oil and metal, so Japan began plans to attack the Dutch colony of Indonesia. But the powers of America and Britain expanded in the region would stop any Japanese aggression. So Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and attacked British colonies. Soon, Japan occupied many islands in the Pacific, including the Philippines and Malaysia. And Japan was on the brink of invading Australia and India. But after the Battle of Midway, the war in the Pacific was turned in the favor of the Allies. Soon, the war turned towards the airfields. An island could be a small and insignificant island with no land mass bigger than a mile in length, and it would become prime property for both sides. For the Japanese, the islands would become ports for defending areas to stop invasions of the home islands. For the Americans, any islands can be used for airfields against Japan. Saipan, located in the Northern Mariana Islands, could fit an airfield and was close enough to Japan that it could be bombed. Not to mention that the U.S. could retake their colony of Guam. So the invasion plans began. 30,000 troops from Japan, led by Yogashima Sato, were already there. Though a force was assembled under General Holland, the plan was simple. There was only one non-coral side on the east, where Sato put most of his troops on. Holland decided to put most of his forces on all beaches except the east. It was as risky as smart. First, the tanks, then the Amtraks with Marines and infantry. They hit the beaches on June 15th with heavy resistance. The beaches filled with pillboxes, tanks, and anti-tank dishes. The Marines moved towards the brush. The artillery on top bashed all Amtraks. Accuracy was at its highest, as Japan had planted flags for increased artillery accuracy. But at the end of the day, the Marines had 2,000 casualties, though a beachhead was established. By the next day, reinforcements had arrived, and by nightfall, about a fourth of the island was American. Before everyone was asleep, however, a counterattack by Japanese forces commenced, which was as scary as unsuccessful. By the next day, the Shermans had arrived. Forces pushed inward. Also, more forces landed on the southern side of the island. That night, another banzai attack commenced. Japan forces hid in sugarcane and caves. Americans pulled them out with flamethrowers. The next morning, in the navy that protected American forces and that shelled the island was gone. They moved towards the incoming Japanese fleet. Wheels started off the runway. Hellcats massacred the Japanese planes and ships. Many soldiers became aces within minutes. The battle would be known as the Battle of the Philippine Sea or the Great Mariana Turkey. After their savior lost, Japanese forces were forced inland. Sato was worried if the Americans gained Saipan, Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands would be gone. The Emperor is also worried. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, he said that they woke a sleeping giant. The Emperor ordered a gaishido. Everyone fights. Wounded, unarmed, high command, everyone. Those too wounded to fight shall commit suicide. Sato commits suicide before it begins. The attack begins on July 7 at dawn. The battle almost pushes the forces into the sea, but because of some courageous fighters, they hold. After the fight, 4,000 Japanese soldiers lay dead. Obisake took all remaining troops and led guerrilla warfare. The Battle of Saipan was over. From Saipan, Guam and the rest of the islands that would be invaded. Soon, Tokyo began to be bombed, along with other important Japanese positions. Later, a plane from the Mariana Islands dropped the first nuclear bomb. The fighter of Obisake kept leading resistance until finally convinced by his over-commanding officer to surrender.